example of participatory democracy in action. I have not seen so many members of the Beaconsfield Constituency Conservative Association present in one room since the selection meeting in 1997, when I became a candidate and 3.5 weeks later the Member of Parliament. And there is a sort of slight tendency these days to say that participatory democracy is dying. I happen to believe that's not the case. The fact that you've all been willing to turn out on a spring night Friday night when you might have had other things to do is a tribute to your interest. And if that continues, then the Beaconsfield Constituency Conservatives Association's future is a bright one, as is the Conservative Party's. And of course, what brings us all together is conservatism, as expressed through our party, and, as we hope, expressed through our party in government, to deliver on those principles. And they are pretty fundamental ones. The belief that we live in a society which is built by our forebears' endeavour. So at the absolute heart of conservatism is the belief that you should build incrementally on the benefits of the place you are living in, and you should preserve what is good and change what is necessary, but not seek to carry out upheavals, which is very much a socialist way of approaching problems. The belief in freedom under law and our liberties, enshrined in tradition and built by convention and respect for it in our country. And our ability, by encouraging thrift and enterprise and the maintenance of society's values, to encourage each and every person to meet their maximum potential, and by spending wisely to enhance the quality of life of all. That's where the potholes come in, and where the stumbling blocks can sometimes be seen. That needs a sound economy. It needs our ability to provide for our national defence, for our education, for the NHS, and to do that within a societal structure which doesn't impose limitations on people's enterprise and endeavour. That's what brings us here. That's what made me get involved with the Conservative Party when I was at university, because it was the middle of the 1970s and everybody said our country was going down the plug hole. Anybody who remembers the winters of discontent and my sitting at school with candles in my boarding school as the power was shut off in 1974 will remember just how dreadful that was. That's what inspired me to get involved in politics at university, what took me to leafleting the Cowley Works at 6 o'clock in the morning in 1977 and 78 as the working shift, night shift came out, to encourage them to think differently about the country's future and how that enterprise might be harnessed. And that's what led, at least perhaps in some small measure, to Mrs. Thatcher's victory in 1979. And in fact, the start of a period of sustained, beneficial change for our country that has been maintained in terms of our optimism and outlook right through, with a few blips, to the present day, something which, as a young person, before that happened, I actually wondered if we would ever see it again, particularly when I spoke to my parents' generation. That's what brings us together. I'm also perfectly aware that you've all come here this evening, in part because we are in the middle of a great national challenge, and one which also confronts us as Conservatives with some very difficult issues because of its divisive nature. Now, I don't want to go over old ground, but it is, I think, worth just pausing and considering it, and then we can go on to look at where we might go and how we might resolve it. The reality is that the decision of the electorate in 2016 to vote to leave the EU carried out very much, as I know, on the doorstep in the name of tradition, a desire to get back something which was felt to be lost and which the European Union interfered with. All those things carried out in that traditional way nevertheless precipitated a revolution. Perhaps that was inevitable, seeing the extent to which our past 45 years has been enmeshed with that of the EU, and the growth of the structures that surrounded it. It led to David Cameron's disappearance as Prime Minister within a few hours, effectively, of the referendum result. It led to a crisis within our party that was only resolved by our coming together as parliamentarians very quickly and getting the present Prime Minister, Theresa May, elected without, in fact, having to go out for a national campaign, because we felt so strongly that if we did that, we would be causing destabilisation. She has then set out, as best she can, to try to deliver on the outcome of that referendum, and to do it in a way that she saw as minimising the risks involved. Now, I realise when it comes to talking about the risks, there will be diverse opinions, certainly amongst my parliamentary colleagues. Some of them saw a great deal of opportunity, and others saw many risks. She sought to reconcile those two things, and she certainly laboured long and hard at doing it. But the difficult reality we have to face is that when, in the autumn last summer, she published her checkers plan, which outlined the blueprint for the form that Brexit should take. The consequence of that, after a period of preliminary instability beforehand, was that several key members of her cabinet walked out and said that they were dissatisfied with what she was trying to achieve. And when, by the end of the autumn, she returned with the deal she had negotiated with our European Union partners, it was, as you all know, defeated on the floor of the House of Commons by a majority of 220, the largest single defeat, I think, in history of a government on the floor of the House of Commons. Something very dramatic, and which 30 years ago would probably have led immediately to the fall of a government and the general election. But that didn't happen, partly because we have a Fixed-Term Parliaments Act, and secondly, because, and I'm pleased about this, the party saw a general election as being a very bad idea, as likely to just exacerbate division further, and rallied round on the motion of no confidence tabled by Jeremy Corbyn. And I have to say to you, we've also been helped by the fact that Jeremy Corbyn's only success in the course of his entire period, it seems to me, as a leader of the Labour Party, has been the remarkable achievement of having both Trotskyites and Stalinists working in his private office to advise him. Apart from that, his ineffectiveness is so notable that it is quite clear that the public do not see him as a credible figure. That's our good fortune. But it doesn't solve the underlying problem. Now, I think the reason for the underlying problem of the 220 vote rejection was pretty apparent if you bother to go back and look at the Conservative Party manifesto of 2017. It said quite a lot about Brexit. But one of the things it said, which was absolutely key, that it said, we believe it is necessary to agree the terms of our future partnership alongside our withdrawal, reaching agreement on both within the 2 years allowed by Article 50 of the Treaty on the European Union. And as you all be aware in this room, this has been unachievable. And the consequence of its unachievability is that we have a withdrawal agreement and a transition agreement. I'll come back to those in a moment. But we do not have any sort of certainty as to what the future relationship is going to be. The original idea was that the future relationship would be something where you left at 1 minute to midnight, and at 1 minute past midnight, you would be in the future relationship. Not what we have on offer at the moment, which is 20 months minimum of a transition agreement that my colleague Boris Johnson described as vassalage. And I have to say, he is correct in saying that it is a period of total dependency on EU regulations and absolutely no say in their creation. That might not matter if one were certain as to where one was going to end up. But it doesn't exactly come as a surprise to me that when this became apparent as the deal that was going to be on offer, it started to be pulled apart from both ends of the spectrum. Firstly, my colleagues in the ERG, I use that term loosely, who took the view that this deal didn't meet their vision or expectations of Brexit at all. And secondly, for somebody like myself, who always made clear my belief that Brexit is a very high-risk activity indeed, and who, looking at it, took the view that we were heading for a second or third-rate relationship, an outcome compared to what we enjoy at present. The likely benefits that we were going to get from Brexit seem to me to be entirely outweighed by the risks. That really lies at the root of the problem we've now got. The Prime Minister went away, and she tried to resolve it by negotiating changes to the Northern Ireland backstop. Don't want to get too involved with that, but I'll only simply say this. The Northern Ireland backstop, in my judgment, is not the issue. The Northern Ireland backstop is the outward and visible sign of an inherent truth that, quite independently of our EU membership, the totality of the relationship with the other islands means that we have undertakings with Ireland that we have never treated as a foreign country in the absolute sense. Go back to the Ireland Act of 1949, and that as a result of the Good Friday Agreement, we had come to an agreement with them that there would be no hard border. And the reality is that if we are leaving the EU to move towards differential tariffs and regulatory frameworks, which is one of the key arguments for those promoting Brexit, because they believe that we should be global players and relax our ties with the free trade area, the single market area of the EU, this can lawfully only be done by carving Northern Ireland out of the United Kingdom's economic area and leaving it essentially in the EU's. And it's not surprising, therefore, that the DUP have got upset about it. But it's also the case that it can't go away. Even if you took the backstop away, it would still be there. Because unless the United Kingdom wants to rip up the rule book after it's gone, as countries can do, like the Germans did when they invaded Belgium in 1914 and said it was a scrap of paper, we are a country which observes our international legal obligations and operates within the international rules-based system. So backstop or no backstop, that's one of the stark realities of Brexit that I'm afraid was not fully developed in the course of the referendum campaign, although I talked about it both in Beaconsfield, Marlow and Bourne End when I did my public meetings there. And that's why it is effectively immutable, and the Prime Minister has never sought to interfere with it. So that's why we have been getting ourselves to our current pass, where effectively government has become progressively paralysed because the deal that has been negotiated cannot get majority support in the House of Commons. Now, most recently, today, the government tried a different approach. It went and suggested that as its deal had been rejected twice, and because of some shenanigans by the Speaker, which actually I deplore, but I'll leave that to one side, I think he was wrong in the way he interpreted the convention of the House about bringing a Section 13 motion back again. Leaving that to one side, the government attempted to resolve it by suggesting that the House of Commons should vote today simply on the withdrawal and transition agreement, and not as always promised in the withdrawal bill, lumping it together with the future relationship, and suggested that the future relationship could then be worked out in the course of the passage of the primary legislation, the Withdrawal Agreement Act, which would follow between now and mid-May. And the consequence of doing that would be that we could give notice to the EU that we had resolved the issue of Brexit. The EU would give us a technical extension to the 22nd of May, and that thereafter we would sort the rest out between now and then. And it was offered as an alternative to the prospect of leaving on the 12th of April. And as you all know, I voted against the government today with a heavy heart, because I disagreed fundamentally with what was being done. And the reason I disagreed fundamentally with it is this. At the moment, the EU has said to us that we have two possible dates for going. The 12th of April, if there's no deal and we want to crash out, or if we have resolved the issues of Brexit, the 22nd of May extension. They also said to us that if we wanted a longer extension, we should ask for it before the 12th of April, and they would consider granting it if we wanted to reset our own national conversation. So if we're going for the 22nd of May, it means that if we haven't sorted this out by mid-May, we do risk crashing out with no deal at all. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. And my view is that the risk of that happening was very high indeed. My reason for thinking that is because many of my colleagues who changed their position between the vote 2 weeks ago and the vote today did so openly stating that their purpose of doing it was that once we were out, they would seek, actually even join the passage of the Withdrawal Agreement Act, to effectively rip up the agreement on the future political declaration. And it was said quite honestly by Ian Duncan Smith, who's a transparently honest person, during the course of the debate today. And if that's the case, then the possibility of the party coming to a compromise on what is clearly a very controversial issue by the middle of May seems to me, I have to say to you, to be most unlikely. And that threatens our survival as a party. It also threatens a no-deal Brexit. Now, I'm perfectly aware that maybe some constituents, some in this room, who think a no-deal Brexit is something that they would be happy to embrace at some time called the WTO Brexit.
Yes.
I have to say to you that I, as your MP, cannot sanction such a course of action. Leaving aside future economic indicators, the government's own documents published about the consequence of no-deal Brexit make abundantly clear that on things which aren't just about economic forecasts, but simple arithmetic, the costs are horrendous. £13 billion per annum to UK business simply from the form filling that would have to take place in order to continue trading.
Lies! Lies! Rubbish! Rubbish!
Rubbish! Some of you. This is the government's own figure.
I got the figures wrong last time.
Duncan's figure, and it was the figure that was published and shown to the Cabinet and subsequently was provided to Parliament when Parliament insisted on seeing the briefing that had been received. On top of that, every Privy Councillor, which I one, all had briefings from the government, which made abundantly clear that the government's own view of a no-deal Brexit was that it came at a cost that is completely unacceptable.
To you.
Yeah. It's a reminder.
Not to us.
What we voted for?
You're a traitor.
How many jobs are we going to lose, Dominic? 800,000 again?
Project Fear.
How many jobs are we going to lose? 800,000 again?
I'm sorry, but I will not allow it. Our member of Parliament is speaking and is given the time.
I do worry very much. I have no idea whether I've been personally affected. I have to say, if I'm on the quiet, I might act differently. I'm chairman of the Intelligence and Security Committee. I might get on and just do nothing. But I have to say that as your member of Parliament, I have a responsibility to you, but also to every single one of my constituents, to try to ensure their well-being and their quality of life. Adding massively to their costs of their businesses, I have lots of pharmaceuticals who are in this constituency who've come to tell me about what the costs already are for them from Brexit. What the probable
Because of all the
consequences
delay.
will be of a no-deal Brexit, generally speaking catastrophic, in some cases there will be some people pulling out from their UK bases, is not a price I'm willing to pay. And if I may say, we had a free vote on leaving on a no-deal Brexit earlier this week as part of the indicative voting process. And 160 MPs voted for a no-deal Brexit. There are 650 members of Parliament in the House of Commons. And so I have to say to you that in view of that free vote indicator, the idea that a no-deal Brexit is going to take place is, in my view, fanciful. It won't happen. So, how do we get ourselves out of our difficulties? Earlier this week, I worked with Oliver Letwin.
More rubbish.
Excuse me. Oliver is firstly a person, I disagree with him on a number of aspects of Brexit. He's been supportive of the government over its broad policies. Furthermore, he's had a distinguished career working in the Cabinet Office, and nobody has ever questioned his integrity or his approach to his work. And he got involved because he was so concerned about the consequences of a no-deal Brexit that he wished at all costs to prevent that from happening. And seeing that it seemed to him, and I think I share his view, that the Prime Minister's deal had little or no prospect of getting through, even though he supported it, he took the view that we had to do something else and look for a plan B. And as that plan B has not materialised from the government, I'll come back to that in a second, he took the view that the solution was for the House of Commons to act on its own motion and try to hold debates which identified how we could best proceed. Now, not an easy matter. We have a party system for good reason. Frankly, putting a group of MPs on a cross-party basis and without a whip in a room together is a bit like trying to get an octopus into a string bag. It is not an easy thing to do. You have a wide diversity of opinions, sincerely held. But we started that process, and it indicated two things this week. But the two things which probably united the House most were firstly a softer form of Brexit, and I realise that goes down very badly with some people, and secondly, the fact that although none of these had majorities, there was quite a strong polling also for going back to the public and asking them what they want.
We've already told them what we want.
But what, I simply come back to my point, that what we have got to be able to deliver something. No deal is unacceptable, and the Prime Minister's been quite clear.
It's not.
Rubbish.
Article 24 delivers everything we need, thank you.
The Prime Minister has made quite clear
It's wasting our time.
at the dispatch box we mentioned earlier that no deal Brexit is out of the question. So, my view is to use the indicative voting process and to ask the Prime Minister to lead it, and I hope she will do so. I hope that by doing it, we may identify a form of Brexit that may be acceptable. But virtually everybody in this room knows very well, I also remain strongly of the view that we are now talking about something so utterly different from what was being debated in 2016. My judgment is that we should be going back to ask people if this is what you want.
Rubbish! We told them what we want. You're a Remainer.
I don't say that lightly. I realise that in the great scheme of things, we are in a very unsatisfactory situation, whatever we do. And unless you're an enthusiast for the Brexit, and I realise
Yes.
I'm afraid it's not going to happen. So that's the simple truth about it. And in those circumstances,
How dare you?
how
absolutely
I would strongly recommend that it is sensible to go back and ask people their opinion. If if they want to leave on terms which are deliverable, it could be the Prime Minister's deal or another deal, we can put in place the mechanism by which if they approve it, we can be out of the EU within 24 hours of a referendum. And if not, they want to choose to remain, then they choose to remain. In democracy, people are entitled to change their minds. And it's worth bearing in mind that one of the problems we've had with this debate, in my judgment, is that we've closed down areas of debate, whereas democracy can only thrive when debate is carried out on all topics, all the time. You can't just shut it down, you end up with big problems. Now, I'm conscious of time.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
That is the aim of this evening, and I'm looking forward to both your questions and trying to answer. I want to see this country get out of its present crisis. I want to see the Conservative Party thrive so it can deliver the things that bring us together and are of value to our fellow citizens. And I want to make sure that this association, all of you who've turned out in such numbers this evening, continues to be what it should be, which is the leaven in the bread of conservatism within this constituency. Bearing in mind that there are many thousands of people who vote Conservative all around the country, and in this constituency particularly, who are not members of our association, and who I hear from just as I hear from you. That must be our aim, and if we can do that sensibly, then I continue that hope we will get ourselves through this present difficulty. And that, Mr. President, is what as Conservatives we should be aiming to do, because if we're furthering the common good, we are justifying exactly what we were brought together and created to do. Thank you very much.
Nevertheless, as the usual Q&A, we vote the constant everybody to ask questions about when Dominic is ready, and we'll start there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here.
We're not on to the confidence motion yet. You can ask the question. What is your question?
I don't even know what the question
He
was.
says he wants the motion denied. To start deselection. He didn't say that.
I listened to you last Friday in Jeremy's Cross. I very much empathise with your position. And looking at at your voting record and what you said last Friday, you made an oblique comment that members of Parliament may wish to raise funds and create another party. It seems that it may be in your mind to join the alternative group. Could you confirm to us whether that is the case or not?
Oh, please do.
And furthermore, could you confirm that if you decided to jump ship as such, that you would resign and there would be a by-election here with constituents? Mr. Chairman, they're two straightforward questions.
We're just taking another question before Dominic answers that. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Dominic's very clear on this. He'll know the position.
Use that as a diversion tactic. If you take 3 questions and you can only answer 2 of them, and everybody forgets about the third one.
Two linked questions there. I suggest that Dominic takes both of them.
Let's start with the last question. I did check being a member of the Conservative Party last week, and for a very good reason. I never thought I would witness the day when the Prime Minister came to the House of Commons and attacked members of Parliament for doing their duty. And those who were being attacked included, if I may just make the point, those who were the advocates of leave, and who I found myself actually in the same division lobby with today. Steve Baker, my neighbour at Wickham, somebody with whom I have a very high regard, and Marie Morris, I think he's known to watch they were the object of an attack by the Prime Minister. I think it may have been in frustration, and subsequently she apologised, which I'm very pleased about, and the matter is over. But I didn't regard it as a proper thing to happen. However difficult our times may be, we have to display some sustained integrity, and to attack and undermine the very institutions which, on the whole, we honour in this country, is, I think, a very serious mistake. And it was repeated in the evening when the Prime Minister, delivered a statement to the nation. I say this because, you may criticise and you may fault members of Parliament, but I have to say to you, over the last 2 years, most of them have carried quite a heavy burden of making decisions which attract a lot of criticism. And I say that as much of Steve or Anne-Marie as of my colleagues like Anna Soubry, who now has virtually police protection because of their decision.
Another traitor.
She took those decisions because she thought they were in the national interest, not her own selfish interest. And the same applies to all, in my judgment, to all of them. That's why, even though tempers may rise elsewhere, within Parliament there's a great level of courtesy between us. That applies to me and Jacob.
We're talking about you, Dominic, not the other MPs.
And it's not fair for an attack to be launched on those who are doing their best to represent the country. The second thing is, would I join another party? Why should I join another party? I'm a Conservative to my fingertips. I have no intention of leaving the party at all, and I don't intend to. There is a debate taking place within the party, and I've got to participate in it, and I will participate in it, and I will express my opinion, and I'll do it within it. Now, coming back to the first question, read the manifesto. Firstly, stand by this. I said what I did in the election, and I meant it. Even though I didn't like Brexit, and I didn't, and even though I think it's one of the biggest historic mistakes this country has ever committed, I went in, and there are lots of other MPs who think this, I went in and did my best to support the Prime Minister. Personally, I did intervene on a couple of occasions. I intervened firstly when I thought the vilification of the judiciary for doing their job, that was another disgraceful episode, and which also made me ashamed of being a Conservative, because I'm afraid at that point some Conservatives participated in it. That was one thing. Secondly, I was pretty appalled when I realised that the government, doubtless under pressure, this does happen with governments, was taking an extraordinary shortcut in giving itself Henry VIII powers to enact statutory instruments to take us out of the EU, even when the bill to do it had not been passed in Parliament. And that's when I first rebelled with a group of others in December 2017 to prevent it. Summer of December 2017, in the manifesto, I reiterated I'd do my best, but I pointed out to you the extent to which the manifesto commitments as set out have proved to be incapable of implementation. They are. Read page 36, and you will see the extent to which we have not been able to fulfill it, particularly in terms of the two things, the future relationship and the withdrawal and transition agreement not being clear. And that was the reason
deliberately
our G colleagues were in the same lobby as me today. So that's where we are on that. And since then, I've done my best where I can to support the government. I voted against the deal. I accept that. But apart from that, the only other significant thing I've done is to insist that there be amendable motions in the event of Parliament not being able to reach agreement. And the government's agreement be rejected. The final when finally we got onto it, the people who were taking the most advantage of it were the people who had argued the hardest against it when I insisted on taking that as a vote.
Why do you want me to leave? We're not supposed to record this. If this is your phone, you're going to have to do this well. No recordings we made. No recordings. Okay, take it off then. Give me the phone, I'll switch it off. Not switch it off, delete it. Delete it, you just put it on there, it's fine. And then you can leave.